Hey everyone, it's Alan Schimmel, and you're listening to another DevOps Chat, or in this case, perhaps watching a DevOps video. Happy to be joined here by my friend JT Giri, who is the CEO founder of nClouds. JT, welcome.
Hey, good morning, Alan. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. Nice to have you here. JT, let's first of all say Merry Christmas, Happy New Year.
Same to you.
Yeah, it's been an exciting, we were talking off camera, off mic, it's been an exciting quarter for you. You're a new-time dad and moving homes, and at the same time, nClouds business seems to be just booming, along with everything else associated with Amazon Web Services and the cloud. So congratulations.
Thank you. Exciting times.
Yeah, it is. So JT, I wanted to talk a little bit about, there's people listening to this or watching this who are saying, I want to be like Google, or I want to be Facebook, or I want to be one of these unicorns in that I want to harness the cloud. We have our servers in a closet here or a data center or at a third-party data center, but we're not really cloud. And everything seems to be in the cloud. We want to move to the cloud. But, we're only maybe 250, 500 employees. How do we do that, right? Do we need a helper like an nClouds? Do we need to update everything? Do we throw out the baby with the bathwater and start new? I want to talk to you. I want you to tell us a little bit sort of what's the typical sort of customer journeys that you see when you guys engage?
Yeah, absolutely. So Alan, we talked in past. I've been migrating companies to AWS ever since EC2 was in beta. And as I would migrate these companies, people will realize that they need someone to manage it, right? So that's how sort of nClouds came to be. And as you mentioned, this has been an incredible year for us. We doubled the size and revenue and the number of people. What we are seeing that in SMB type of market, when companies migrate or when they try to migrate to AWS, they still need to follow, obviously they need to follow best practices because cloud or AWS is constantly changing and the skill set is just not there. So that's where, we come in play. We can make sure that your infrastructure is well architected. We take an approach of migrating in a way where you're really taking advantage of the cloud. So for example, using containers, things that are really going to help you to harness the power of cloud. And then for most of our customers, we're providing 24/7 support. And when we see people try to do this themselves, they get like a bad taste of cloud. They're like, oh, this is not for us. We're not really innovating fast. So that's why, Ellen, we've been very successful because, there's a huge gap in SMB type of companies. There's a skill gap and just experience. We bring that to the table. And it's been incredible. We're able to add a lot of value.
Sure. So JT, early on there, you said something about when an organization needs someone to help them manage their cloud migration. When does an organization recognize that they need someone to help them? What's sort of a trigger point? As we spoke off camera a little bit. Is it when like someone dives in the pool and says, oh my God, I can't swim, it's too deep? Or is it before you dive in the pool, a prudent person hires a swim coach? You know what I mean? What is sort of the trigger things that people should see as a red flag or as a trigger event that says, hey man, I should be getting some help here?
Yeah, that's a great question. So basically, it depends when the companies come to that realization that we need some outside help, right? Sometimes it is that, they will try to do the project themselves, or in other cases, they realize that they really want to just focus on delivering value to their customer, right? They really want to just innovate fast. So, and they, see how they can just stay focused on that. And that's something we do incredibly well. We build system and processes together where our key focus is to make sure the customer could deliver value to their customers fast. And we want to make sure the infrastructure is not getting in their way. It's just, this is coming more and more popular, like DevOps as a service, where companies are reaching out to partners like nClouds to help them with DevOps related tasks, like with the migration, setting up CI/CD pipeline, becoming an extension to their team. So they can focus on their core business, right? And, it really depends when they, when sometimes they come to that realization pretty fast, or sometimes they try to do things themselves. And when things don't work out, they, try to use someone like nClouds.
Yep. So JT, generally, one of the hardest things in life is learning when to ask for help. And
right.
That includes cloud migrations and everything else. At the SMB level, mid-enterprise level, you don't have as an elaborate or as big a structure as, let's say, you do with a large enterprise where you have layers and layers of management and hierarchy. A lot of the organizations you deal with are rather flat in their management structure. So who is it in the organization who finally kind of raises his hand and says, wait a second, I think we should engage some professional help, right? I think we should bring in some experts to help us. Is it the CEO, CIO, someone lower than that? What's your experience?
Yeah, it's normally CTO, VP of engineering type of person. And also, as you know, we became Premier partner with AWS last year. So AWS is, Amazon is no secret that they're very customer obsessed. So they will, at Amazon, when they're speaking to a customer and if they see the customer is struggling, they will introduce someone like nClouds to help them out with the migration or just modernize their infrastructure. And sometimes, actually many times they can come in with funding where they will offset some of the costs. So for customer, it's just like a no-brainer to, see if we can have some external experts come in and, fix up the infrastructure or streamline the infrastructure. And so the conversation, normally we do get a lot of business directly, people reaching out like, hey, we need DevOps help. But we also get a lot of business directly from AWS where they identify this customer needs help and we get involved that way.
So that's going to bring up two questions. The first one is on track with what we're talking about. So now the CTO or CIO or, an executive says, yeah, we're going to bring in nClouds, whether AWS referred it as partially subsidizing it or what have you. But we're going to bring in nClouds or some other, type of help. Is there any sort of pushback or resistance normally with, when you're dealing with people, the not first responders, but the individual contributors who feel like, hey man, I don't want to be replaced. I don't want to be outsourced. I don't want to, give up my cheese to some outside company who's helping us? Or if so, how do you overcome that? How do you work with the organization with that?
Yeah. So normally there's not a pushback, Alan. So I was actually rereading the Phoenix project yesterday, and I was just reading the story of Brent, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when you're talking to these customers, some of these guys are on their honeymoon with their pager with them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then when you're coming in and you're saying, hey, we're going to help you out with 24/7 support so you can get your life back. Or, we're going to help you to streamline this DevOps work, which you never really got opportunity or time to, work on. We're going to help you out with that, right? and it's incredible. Sometimes maybe the initial impression might be the same as you describe, like, hey, are you gonna take my job? But as they understand the value, they normally are super happy. Another thing we do, Alan, in most of our engagements, we do this assessment called well-architected assessment, where we're coming in and we're just reviewing your infrastructure to see how well you're architected. And after that assessment, we give you like a roadmap, like what are some things you should focus on first month, and what are some things you should focus on short term and long term. And the assessment goes over, cost, security, reliability, performance, and operation excellence. So, we can get like in the short-term roadmap, we can show some quick wins where the customer sees the value and they also get confident in our ability. So that's sort of the path that works really well for us right now.
Got it. JT, another thing you mentioned that is nCloud is a premier Amazon partner. And, in today's world, we throw out platinum and gold and, these sort of levels all the time. But really, within the Amazon hierarchy, a premier partner has sort of, they don't hand that out like candy. Talk to us a little bit about what's entailed in being an Amazon premier partner.
Yeah, it's a top tier status with AWS, and in order to get there, like you said, there's only 25 premier partners in North America, and you have to show case studies, you have to show the training path of your employees, and you also have to have multiple competencies. Like we have DevOps competency, we have migration competency, and we're also the well-architected partner. And it's just very subjective. If you work closely with Amazon, even if you hit all the check boxes, they want to make sure that quality is there for premier partners. So they look, how you work well with your customer. What does your customer experience look like? Because that's what Amazon cares about that as well. So, it's just very hard to get to this status, and we're honored to be, at this level right now. It's just great.
Yep. So JT, let me go next, kind of where I want to take this, and that's, 2-3 years ago, migrating a company onto an AWS, or it doesn't have to be AWS, migrating a company onto the cloud. You set up some virtual instances, maybe they had some, separate storage, stuff like that, EC2 kind of stuff. But, I just got back from Seattle a couple of weeks ago for KubeCon, Cloud Native Con. reInvent was the week before that. And certainly Kubernetes and containers are kind of really quickly changing the landscape here. Are you seeing that as well? What does that mean for, typically small SMB businesses are not leading edge or bleeding edge, right?
Yeah.
What are you guys seeing?
Yeah, it's very interesting. Who would have thought that the infrastructure we built like a couple of years ago will be considered like a legacy infrastructure? People using EC2 instances and auto scaling group in Amazon's world will like kind of be called outdated right now. So we're seeing incredible push and a lot of sort of initiatives on our customer side where they want to go containers. Pretty much like 90% of our engagements are around containers because it's no-brainer, right? It makes the CI/CD pipeline much easier. Most of the time containers are automatically integrated with scaling, so you can really bin pack your resources. It has impact on your costs. So this is just it just makes the infrastructure far more streamlined and far more easier to manage. And as I mentioned, Ellen, I've been migrating companies to Amazon and EC2 from like last 10 years. and I've been managing infrastructure as long as I've been migrating. So it's just, when I'm building infrastructure right now, it's a no-brainer to build something using Kubernetes, or on AWS we use EKS, or depending on what the customer wants to do. And we had a customer the other day where they were saying, I just want to focus on delivering product to our customers. So, what is the easiest way? We use Fargate for them. Depending on the customer requirement, we'll go Kubernetes. But, long story short, it just makes a lot of sense these days to build infrastructure on containers, because it really streamlines how you manage it in the long run. It just makes life easier.
And that's even at the SMB level.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Because, the needs are same. You need CI/CD pipeline. You need a way for you to scale infrastructure. You need a way for you to run batch or cron job type of, jobs. And when you go with something like containers, you get there, you don't have to kind of build homegrown tools to facilitate these things. Containers or EKS or Kubernetes, they allow versioning when you deploy, or auto scaling is sort of built in. You can schedule batch jobs. It's a no-brainer. If you're building out infrastructure, you should definitely explore containers each time, and that's what we try to do every time. And it's just incredible the amount of success we have before and after.
Sure. So as we sit here at the dawn of a new year, if I would have asked you in early 2018, do you think Kubernetes and containers would be one of the major stories through the year? I don't know if you would have said yes or no. But as we sit here in the dawn of 2019 and we project ahead, let's say I interview at we're all well, and at the end of next year, the end of this coming year, 2019, we sit down and talk about, well, what's 2019 really show? What do you think are the big stories this year, JT? What do you think coming down the pike, especially, I'm not talking at the world guide, for nClouds and for your customer base? What do you think is really, big for you in the coming year?
Yeah, so I think, in general, the application modernization will continue. We continue to see that trend, and this is also big. It's going to be big in SMB. So we will continue to double down on AWS. It's been an amazing partner. Our core values are partnership based on shared goals. So we'll continue to kind of double down on that relationship. And we'll continue to utilize this well-architected framework. It helps us to assess the customers when we're onboarding, and it helps us to manage the customer. Like every time the customers we're managing, we continue to run well-architected assessment to make sure they're well-architected and they continue to stay well-architected. And just continue to focus on SMB, AWS, continue to align with well-architected framework. We also just spun off another company. It's called nOps. Basically, it just helps to make sure the customers are well aligned with well-architected framework, and is available on AWS Marketplace. So we'll continue to invest in that, because that solution has been incredible. nOps, a lot of our customers seeing value in that. So we are actually working with Amazon to give that solution to other partners like nClouds, who can use to manage their infrastructure to make sure the infrastructure is well architected. And we are also offering it to end customers who can use that tool to assess their infrastructure and continuously stay in compliance with well architected framework.
Excellent. nOps, that's something we'll have to discuss on our next chat, JT.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, you know what? We've been on almost a half hour here, so unfortunately we're about out of time for this one. JT Giri, CEO, founder of nClouds, thanks for being our guest on DevOps Chat.
Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure. Best of luck to nClouds this year. Best of luck to you personally with your family and everything else. You know, it's going to be a busy year for you, my friend.
Absolutely.
All right.
Thank you. Thank
All
you.
right. Hey, JT Giri and nClouds here with Alan Schimmel on DevOps Chat. You've just listened to another chat. Bye-bye, everyone.